Hello and welcome to the latest edition of JRock's Babylon News Special. Um, last month we did a special on the latest Helix album, Scrap Metal. We thought we'd follow that one up with talking about the 40th anniversary of Motley Crue's Theater Pain album, which came out in 2025, just last year, last November to be specific. Yeah, this is the little package we're talking about. Now, I'd already had this, but I wanted to get the new package. And in all honesty, if you got the CD version like me, you're not really getting anything um, extra. I mean, probably the most different thing is the sleeve. Now, it's the same original album cover that we got on the original release. In fact, amazingly, they don't really have any bonus songs or anything extra. In order to get that, you had to order the vinyl package, and you got not just the original release, but you got a live concert from 1985 from the Long Beach Arena. But I don't have anything to play vinyl on, so I got the CD version. But I still thought it was very much worth talking about. It's hard to believe that 40 years has passed since this was originally released. And I remember from the very first time I got this initially, I always loved the album cover. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then other thing I did kind of about the 40th anniversary CD that I got, it came on with this beautiful little kind of sleeve that actually holds the CD. Isn't that beautiful? I always love the mask, and we're going to talk about the mask and kind of what it represents. But I love this little cover that you get to put the CD in, and then if you flip it over, you get this. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But let's get into this, okay? Okay, Theater Pain is Motley Crue's third album, which was released on June 21st, 1985. How many of you remember this album when it came out? Again, Motley Crue's a band that had been around at this point since 1981. They're just putting out the third release at the time. So very much Motley Crue is a fairly new band, kind of up and coming on the rise. You know, at this time, MTV is plays a big role and the success of this album, and we're going to talk all about that now. To talk specifically about the album, um, interesting fact is that the album peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Top 20 charts. The album was on the Billboard chart. Forget this, for over 100 weeks. That's pretty amazing when you stop and really kind of think about it. And you got to also think about the image Motley Crue had at this time. Of course, the album they put out right before Theater Pain came out, like 2 years before. That was Shout at the Devil, and Shout at the Devil they had a much darker. Everything was kind of black and dark and red and color blood, and they had much more of a darker, more of a heavy metal look. Whereas by the time Theater Pain comes out in 1985, they've got much more of a glammy look, kind of a glam rock a look of bands, like Motley and that from the 70s and stuff. But it was a lot closer to glam rock than what Shout at the Devil looked like. And you can imagine when you go from Shout at the Devil to Theater Pain, and they had that over top kind of glam look all of a sudden, you can imagine how different it was for the fans. And there's a bit of that reaction, but you also got to remember, by the time 1985 comes around, MTV is a very big thing in the music industry, and all of a sudden, bands were all, really pressured by both MTV and the labels to, hey, let's make a music video. You gotta look cool. It's all now more about how the band looked than necessarily even about how the band sounded. It was more about the look than the sound. Music videos were like the latest fad, and everybody was putting one out. Everybody was trying to get their video, to top the charts. Everybody was trying to outdo each other. Um, and so Motley Crue were no different, and they were very much pressured by their record label, and hey, come up with some more kind of commercial sounding tunes. If you write songs that are loaded up with hooks, we can make a great video for that. People want to check out the song, so there was a little bit of that going on at the time. Now, the album featured two hit singles, which was "Smoking in the Boys' Room" um, and "Home Sweet Home." Now, let's talk a little bit about Motley Crue's two hit singles off this. Probably one that everybody remembers. The first one that came off this album was a great cover of "Smoking in the Boys' Room." Now, I got to talk a little bit about "Smoking in the Boys' Room" for. Not only is it one of my all-time favorite songs, but come to find out, it's not a Motley Crue original. No, the original version was done by this band, the Bronzeville Station, in 1973 when the original version came out. And I'm going to give you guys some interesting kind of facts about the song. So again, the original version came out in 1973, and here's a real fun, interesting thing. The original version actually charted higher than the Motley Crue version. Now, the original version came out in 1973, peaked the Billboard chart at number 3, if you can believe that, okay? Now, in regards to the Motley Crue version, that peaked at number 16 on the Billboard chart. So Motley Crue's version charted. Here's an interesting thing, though. While the original version by the Bronzeville Station did peak at number 3 on the Billboard chart, higher than Motley Crue's version. But the interesting thing is, probably at this point, as we sit here in 2026, more people have heard the Motley Crue version. A lot of people foolishly believe that "Smoking in the Boys' Room" is very much indeed a Motley Crue song. Very much like there's a certain number of Motley fans out there that have no idea that, again, they think "Helter Skelter" off of "Shout at the Devil" was indeed a Motley Crue song. Come to find out, no, that's actually a Beatles song. That's about as heavy as the Beatles ever got. But again, Motley Crue's always been one of those bands when they cover a song, they put their stamp all over it. And this was another one of those times in Motley Crue's career where they accomplished that. If you remember the music video that was all over MTV back in the day, which helped to elevate Motley Crue to become a legendary band that they are today. I mean, it's one of the songs that remained in the set list for Motley Crue's entire 45 plus year career, to date. It's one of those songs that have remained in the set list all these years, ever since first came out in 1985. And again, talking about the music video for "Smoking in the Boys' Room," I mean, it had kind of a rebellious kind of feel to the video. You remember it was in the classroom and the kids in the class kind of going crazy. You could say, to me, the video kind of reminded me of the cross between Van Halen's "Hot for Teacher" video and maybe even Twisted Sister's "I Want to Rock." It had those kind of elements of those previous music videos. And again, it was a fun video. And I loved in the Motley Crue version, where they dropped the names of the band members, like, Vince sings for my pal Six, Mick and Lee. That was another thing I kind of always loved about that song. Now, the other hit song, of course, off of this album, of course, was "Home Sweet Home." Now, let's talk a little bit about "Home Sweet Home." "Home Sweet Home" is a piano-driven power ballad. That is the album's emotional centerpiece. about life on the road and longing to go back home, to get off the road. Um, that kind of tells the fans a little bit about how the band was feeling about. On one hand, they love being on the road, but they miss their families and their wives, and they couldn't wait to get home. Um, and so that's kind of what the video is about. And it was another music video that was all over MTV. It became a big hit. Home Sweet Home is another one of those Motley songs that um, they still play when they perform in concert to this very day. It's one of those songs that if you're a Motley Crue fan, you expect to go and hear them play it in concert. Also, another fun thing, if you're a Motley Crue fan, just last year the band put out a new greatest hits collection, and they made a video, and the single off of that was a re-recorded version of Home Sweet Home, a duet of Motley Crue actually doing it with country legend Dolly Parton. How cool is that? Now, you haven't checked out that version of Home Sweet Home, I urge you to go on YouTube, and you will find the video, and it's a killer video. Um, and I don't think I think to be honest, as much as I like um, the version with Dolly Parton, I think it's a cool updated version. It's a cool thing to hear if you're a Motley Crue fan. It's like a different kind of a new version of the song, but it's still a classic. But I dare say that you really can't go wrong with the original version. And even Home Sweet Home back in '91, there's another music video there's like three different videos for this song. So there's the original um, music video from 1985. Then they put out one in 1991 when they released Decade of Decadence. They released a updated version with a new video for that, and then they got the new Dolly Parton version where they do the song, with Vince Neil and Dolly Parton doing kind of a duet together. And that's kind of, if you're a Motley fan, you'll want to definitely check that out. Let's talk about some of the other songs that are on this album. One of my all-time favorites off of this album is the song that starts off the album, City Boy Blues. Now, it's again, one of my all-time favorite songs, but I got to be honest with you folks, it's also, I feel, one of the most forgotten Motley Crue songs ever. I never understood why they didn't make a music video for this song. I really felt this could have been the third single off the album. And there's also the fact that it's a little bit of a different sound from Motley Crue. It don't stray too far away, but I'll tell you, it's got kind of a bluesy kind of swagger to it, and that's one of the things I always loved about this song. Another great song off of this album that, again, I think until recently this was a very much a forgotten Motley Crue song. Of course, I'm talking about the song "Keep Your Eye on the Money." It's a mid-tempo rocker about the band's growing success and temptations that they were dealing with. They came with change, and fame and their wealth and their ever-growing success. Because even though this was a album, it only had two hit singles. Two of the biggest hits of the band's career, even to this day. And interesting enough, like I said, the Motley Crue's image at the time was such a drastic change from what it was with "Shout at the Devil," dark and black and red, to this bright kind of glammy glam rock kind of look that they were doing for Theater of Pain. It was like two polar opposites, and certain number of fans kind of had an immediate reaction, like, "What is this? This is definitely not Shout at the Devil." They really kind of flipped the script here. But that's the thing Motley Crue would become known for. Even as a Motley fan, if you go back and you look at every time Motley Crue released a new album, there was a different, they altered their look. They altered their sound just a little bit. But that was a Even like Generation Swine, quite a different look there. Again, compared to Too Fast for Love or Shout at the Devil. Um, but again, it's cool because that's one thing about Motley Crue. They were ever evolving. They were constantly changing. I think that's one of the things I know as a fan that I always loved about the band. Like, man, they always are changing the look and the sound just a little bit, to keep you going back for more. So again, let's look at this. Like this is what you call the mask of tragedy, and this is a mask of comedy, and we're going to kind of talk about that and why this album cover was such a big part of the success of the album. So let's talk about it a little bit. The album cover features a classic theater mask, which represents theater pain. Okay, theater is talking about the performance, the image, the illusion. Pain is the darker reality behind the scenes of what was going on with the band. Okay, so the mask on the album cover for Theater of Pain features exaggerated features such as a slightly eerie expressing both performance and hidden pain. Okay, so that's what you're supposed to kind of get from this. So obviously, the mask on this side feature that's kind of a teardrop, and the blood represents pain, and this mask features the performance, the illusion, the image. Okay, let's see. So another thing is, let's talk about the album. The album cover also represents what the band was going through at the time. Okay, so let's see. It says, so fame and success on the outside, personal turmoil and tragedy, such as the car accident that singer Vince Neil had recently been in, where he had killed Hanoi Rock's drummer Razzle, and of course, it's been a big thing that surrounded the band for many, many years, and so that had happened right before the album had been released. People, including people at the label and the band's management, the band members themselves, not knowing if Vince Neil would go to jail, how it would affect the record sales, if it would affect people coming to see the band in concert. And so there was a lot of that worry at the time. But of course, the car accident was a horrible accident, and some people got killed, some people got seriously injured. Result, sadly, of Vince Neil drunk driving. But again, people were surrounding the band were very concerned how Vince's accident might affect the future of the band. And I guess depending on how you look at it, for the band's sake, Vince went to court. He did what he had to do, but many people felt that he got off and that he didn't, maybe he got off a little too easy. Who knows? It's hard to say, but I'm sure that's something that to this day that he still in the back of his mind has to feel guilty about. Has to kind of be one of those things that he's always got in the back of his mind. And alcohol has been a thing that he continues to struggle with, for most of the rest of his life, even up until modern day 2026. I don't know if he's drinking as heavy as he once was, but you always hearing stories about Vince or seeing him drinking and stuff. So I hope he's been able to get a control of his drinking, and that we only hope for the best, because man, it'd be awful. But I do think his heavy drinking has had a lot to do with maybe his poor recent health, suffering like 3 or 4 strokes, And luckily he's, Motley Crue's back on the road this summer, and he seems to be on the mend as far as recovering from his strokes that he had. Good for him. He's been able to perform with Motley Crue. We hope he stays healthy, because that's all you want. I'd love very much for these guys to be able to go out there and kick ass on the stage. I'm going to probably go see the band when they're going to play in my hometown of Long Beach, California, I believe this coming September. I'm going to get myself a ticket if I can. That's what I'm planning to do, folks. And so let's talk a little more about the deeper interpretation of the mask. Okay, it was flashy, it was over the top, it was glamorous. Again, dealing with the image, the look, and then also it was about hiding chaos, addiction, emotional strain. Very, very much interesting. And again, this is kind of having to do with the image, comedy, the laughter, the entertainment, and this is very much the mask of tragedy. That's what the teardrop, the red, the blood represents, the sadness, the pain, the emotion. And again, I always loved this album cover. Now, let's talk a little more about this album, okay? Because again, like I said, MTV was very much pressuring these bands to come up with for the labels, tell the labels, hey, we need to have these cool looking music videos. It's all about image or look. The songs need to have big hooks. Now what was going on with this album and Motley Crue behind the scenes was Theater of Pain was shaped actually by personal tragedy, creative disagreements, substance abuse fueled recording sessions, and forced songwriting. Like they would force the band when they were kind of heavily intoxicated and not like they kind of rushed for songwriting, and that's one of the reasons that I think, as great, the fact that the album peaked at number 16 on the Billboard chart, it's one of the better selling Motley Crue albums. But if you ask most Motley Crue fans, how do you think the album has held up over time? Probably, to be honest, and it has a lot to do maybe with the way the record was made. Technology was not as great as it is today, so that has something to do with it. But the fact that they were coming to the recording studio heavily intoxicated with drugs and alcohol, they weren't at their best. It's been reported that guitarist Mick Mars was very dissatisfied with the direction of the album. He thought they should have stuck doing like something more in line with like Shout at the Devil, but his bandmates didn't listen to him, and many people you ask and they'll tell you that no, I don't think the album's held up that well. That has a lot to do maybe with the fact why he just had the two hit singles. I mean, there are a couple other songs I think that they could have probably released a video for, but they spent a lot of time on the road promoting this album. So maybe there was a lot of time to make music videos because there was demand to be on the road and to promote the album as best you could. And so that's another kind of interesting thing about this album. Again, Smoking in the Boys Room. I'm interested to kind of find out that the original version by the original Bronzeville station band, they peaked higher than Motley Crue's version. Yet there's probably more people that have heard the Motley Crue version, if you know what I mean. Many people out there, they will tell you "Smoking in the Boys Room" is a Motley Crue song, but it's no, it's really not. And so this was really it had been Motley Crue's third album, and this is when Motley Crue was very much on the rise. They were in their element. They were all over MTV, starting to be all over the radio. And Motley Crue was making some serious noise in 19. 1985. And Nikki Sixx has always been one of my favorite, songwriters, bass players. If you look at the stage outfit, one of the main stage outfits Nikki was wearing around the time, like I think you see him in the Home Sweet Home video. He used to wear a white and black kind of striped stage outfit, very much like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith used to wear them in the 1970s, and kind of makes sense now. I find out what a huge Aerosmith fan that Nikki Sixx was. Um, Mick Mars has always been a big part of the band's sound. I mean, he was a lot more influenced by the blues than the other Motley Crue guys, so he kind of brought that to the table. So you could see how maybe he'd have a bit of an influence on bringing something like City Boy Blues. That was a little more closer to the blues, and maybe that's what Mick Mars brought to this album. Tommy Lee's drum style has always been over the top. And interestingly enough, Vince Neil is always kind of, well, he's been he's the original singer of Motley Crue, and for all the albums that he sang on, he was the guy that sang songs written by Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee. Vince has a few credits, but he was basically kind of like he was from Motley Crue, like what Roger Daltrey was for the Who, in that Pete Townsend was a main songwriter, but Roger Daltrey sang all the Pete Townsend songs, and he put a stamp all over it, and that's kind of what Motley Crue was. Nikki Sixx, though, as a songwriter, I think it's one of my all-time favorites, and I think by the time Motley Crue got to put out Dr. Feelgood, which came out in 1989, the band's only number one album, but in the final album with Vince Neil for a couple of years till he would return in 1997. But I love talking about Theater of Pain. It brought back a lot of great memories. I always loved this album cover. So check it out, folks. And again, if you want to get any of the extras, I would suggest getting the vinyl version of the 40th anniversary edition of Theater of Pain. But this is also, I'll just show you one more thing. I love this because you get this cool band photo in the CD version, but in the CD version, you're just getting the original release. You don't get any bonus tunes, but you know what? If you're a Motley fan like me, you probably want to have this. And again, killer album cover. Well, this has been latest edition of JRock's Babylon News Special. We will be doing another one of these probably next month. Thanks for checking this one out. And I am Jason JRock Houston, and I've done my best to try to entertain you and educate you on why you'd want to go and get this, the 40th anniversary edition of Motley Crue's 1985 album, Theater of Pain. Check it out. And hey, that's what we do this for. We want to kind of celebrate the music that we all love and let you know why it's worthy of you checking it out. So that's what we try to do with tonight's special. Thanks for checking this out. I'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.